Hi, Oliver. This is Chapter 9, Incredibles 2, Chapter 9. 9. While Bob was getting Violet and Dash off for another day of school, the Devers and Elastigirl headed to the KQRY television studio for Elastigirl's interview with news anchor Chad Brentley. They sat in the green room watching Chad's live interview with a foreign ambassador. A makeup artist powdered Elastigirl's face, preparing her for the camera. Elastigirl admitted she was a bit nervous. It had been a long time since she had last interviewed. Dever tried to boost her confidence with a few positive words before a stagehand appears. "Miss Elastigirl, they're ready for you." Winston and Evelyn wished her luck, and Elastigirl followed the stagehand into a hallway. As they walked toward the set, the ambassador, flanked by her security team, approached. "Oh," said Elastigirl, "Madam Ambassador, hello." She was about to introduce herself when the ambassador pushed her guards to shake Elastigirl's hand. "You are Elastigirl?" the ambassador said. She looked tickled to see her. "It was so sad when you went underground, and I am glad to see you back in your shiny outfit." "That means so much coming from you, said Elastigirl. "Good luck with your speech. Bring lasting peace." As the ambassador's guards started leading her away, she called, "I will, when you defeat evil." Moments later, Elastigirl was sitting next to Chad on the set. She smiled as he introduced her. For over 15 years, superheroes have been in hiding, forced into it by a society no longer willing to support them. That may soon be changing due to a growing movement to bring the supers back. Here, fresh on the heels of her own heroic save of a runaway train, and sporting a new look, is the superhero Elastigirl. Welcome. "Hello, Chad," said Elastigirl, trying to settle in. "Well, all the polls are going in your direction," said Chad. "That's true. Things are good." Suddenly, Chad's eyes glazed over, and his tone shifted as he interpreted Elastigirl. "Hello," he said. Hello, said Elastigirl, a little confused. "Do I have your attention?" asked Chad in a robotic voice. Elastigirl looked at her interviewer, trying to read his face, and noticed a strange, flashing light pattern reflected in his eyes. "Of course I do," said Chad mechanically. "I'm appearing on your screen, reading the words I'm saying off another screen." Elastigirl followed his gaze to the teleprompter, where she caught a glimpse of hypnotic light patterns blazing across the screen. She started to fall under its spell, but averted her eyes just in time, breaking free. "Screens are everywhere," Chad continued. "We are controlled by screens." Elastigirl hurried into the studio's control room, where she saw everyone was frozen, transfixed by the dazzling lights flashing across the screens. The screen slaver appeared on the monitors. He wore big, round goggles over a large hood that covered his face, and screens were controlled by me, the screen slaver, he added. Elastigirl yelled at the crew, but they stayed absolutely still, mesmerized by the screens. "I control this broadcast, and this idiotic anchorman you see before you," continued Chad. Evelyn hurried over to Elastigirl. "The signal's been hijacked," he said. "I'll check it out." Elastigirl ran back to the set and rushed to Chad, trying to slap him out of his trance. "I could hijack the ambassador's aerocade while it's still airborne, right, Elastigirl?" Chad asked in his robotic voice. "I could hijack the ambassador's aerocade while it's still airborne, right, Elastigirl?" Elastigirl sprinted off the set and into the hallway. "Nearest window! Where's the nearest window?" she shouted. A frightened assistant gestured toward a door, and Elastigirl dashed through it. Spotting a window at the end of another hallway, Elastigirl grabbed a chair and flung it, shattering the glass. She stretched and propelled herself out the window. Chad's trance seemed to break as he blinked and stared at the camera, bewildered. In the control room, the pulsing lights stopped, and the crew snapped out of their trances too. They looked at their screens and saw Chad looking at the empty chair where Elastigirl had been sitting, wondering where she had gone. Elastigirl stretched upward, using the buildings to pull herself to a high rooftop. She scanned the horizons and spotted 3 helicopters in the distance. Then she stretched herself across 2 buildings, grabbing onto each one, creating a giant slingshot with her body. She aimed for one of the helicopters, pulled herself all the way back, and released, shooting into the sky. The force of it smashed her right through the window of the chopper, and she tumbled inside. But the ambassador wasn't there. Elastigirl hurried into the cockpit, and the pilot yelled, "This is a restricted aircraft." "Too late," she yelled back. "They've been compromised." She told the pilot the ambassador was in danger and asked him which chopper she was in. Suddenly, a helicopter blade sliced through the cockpit, barely missing their heads. Elastigirl figured the ambassador must be in that one and told the pilot to get her close to it. "Get to safety," she added. "I'll find the ambassador, and don't look at the screens." The pilot flew as close as possible, and Elastigirl leaped out, swinging on the other helicopter's window. She pulled herself through as a bullet flew by, just missing her. A security guard held a gun with the terrified ambassador at his side. "Stand down," insisted the ambassador. "It's Elastigirl." The guard lowered his gun, and Elastigirl entered the cabin. Turning to the ambassador, she said, "Stay in your seat, ma'am." Then she tried to open the door to the cockpit, but it was locked. She stretched to grab the security guard's gun and shot the lock off, opening it. Inside were 2 hypnotized pilots. Sitting rigidly at the controls, she quickly punched the screens to break them, releasing the pilots from their trance. They looked completely confused, but there was no time to explain. Elastigirl spotted the 3rd chopper coming straight for them. "Get down," she shouted. The helicopter crashed into them, and they careened toward a building. Elastigirl grabbed the controls and pulled up, barely missing it. "Open the door," she yelled, struggling to gain control of the chopper. "Do as she says," the ambassador cried. The cockpit door opened, and Elastigirl yelled to the pilots, "Can you guys swim?" They both nodded, and Elastigirl stretched a leg back, kicking them out of the helicopter and into the river below. Then she turned to the ambassador. "We're too low to parachute. We're going to have to slingshot. Hang on. Trust me." "I trust you," shouted the ambassador. Holding on to the ambassador, Elastigirl stretched herself and snapped back to propel the 2 of them toward the clouds. Once they were high enough, she flattened and expanded her body, turning into a giant parachute. They gently drifted down to the ground. "Are you all right, ma'am?" asked Elastigirl. "I'm fine," said the ambassador. Then she fainted into Elastigirl's arms. End of chapter 9. Next chapter, chapter 10.